I think it's become painfully obvious. The Democrats and the Biden administration are intentionally bringing people into this country for the purpose of destroying it. I think it's fair to say we know that NGOs and Democrat-aligned political groups have been bringing people into this country illegally and intentionally for some time. But it seems now that the purpose is literally to destroy this country. We are seeing this front page report from the New York Post. Surrender. Biden orders border agents to let migrants in with no tracking conditions. No country can survive that. There's a reason why we have laws. There's a reason why we have regulations. There's a reason why you can't just build any factory you want and produce any chemical you want unless you go through a permitting process or some regulatory agency. Now, I can hear all the libertarians squealing and screaming at that idea. I didn't say it was good. I said there was a reason. And I firmly believe that there are good regulations. Certainly, I think the regulations and the system that we have in place right now is not working. That's fair. Perhaps it should be a lot lighter. The New York Post making it painfully obvious. The next asylum court date is 2035. The reason why we have restrictions and regulations on migration is because we don't want to undercut, overwhelm, or destroy the economic system in this country. We want to make sure that people can find jobs, they can thrive, they can succeed and lead good lives. More importantly, we want them to integrate into our culture and our system. What's happening here with this massive influx of non-citizens from all over the world is the destruction of the American system, policy, procedure, and culture. And I believe that's why the New York Post says surrender. And I think this has a lot to do with Donald Trump's inevitable victory. It seems like there's several plans in place. And it makes sense that there are several plans in place. I mean, I don't think that there's a unified cabal controlling everything. Certainly, there are powerful interest groups with great power at the top, for sure. But there's many different political groups acting autonomously. And they all have the intention of, I'd say, destroying this country. In Colorado, Donald Trump was removed from the ballot. They're saying he's ineligible. Now, there's some nonsense talking point about how it was stayed until January 4th. So what does that even mean? Of course, it's stayed. It only matters on January 5th, 90 days before the actual primary. If Trump can't get this resolved in some way before then, that's when it would go into effect. That's when it matters. When I see this story about the unchecked immigration, and we have an exclusive video from Tenant Media's, from Taylor Hansen, showing this insane influx of migrants in Eagle Pass. It seems like Joe Biden and the Democrats know we're done. We're out. So let's burn it all down. They're going to create such a crisis for Donald Trump and for the American people that it will be hard to prioritize going after the criminals who have tried to destroy this country. 15 to 16 million. I don't know how Donald Trump or the United States can handle that. Now let's read this story, and I want to show you an exclusive report on the ground so you can see just how bad it really is. We have this from Tenant Media's Taylor Hansen. Before we get started, head over to Timcast Music on YouTube. We just put up the lyric video together again, and you can check it out. It's doing pretty well, but more importantly, subscribe to Timcast Music on YouTube. We're at 71,800 subscribers. We're probably going to break 100K, and they're going to give us our nice little silver plaque. And all the whinging leftists who are like, no, we hate that Tim Pool makes stuff. Cry more, dude. I don't expect every single person in the world who follows my politics to care about my music. And I got way less subscribers on the music channel. But the people who like it will subscribe. The people who like skateboarding will follow our skateboarding channel. And y'all can like whatever it is you like. Maybe you're a fan of Mexican restaurants and so your buddy wants to get cheeseburgers instead. Well, every so often, say, okay, I'll go get a cheeseburger with you. How about that? Subscribe to Timcast Music. Head over to thebestsongever.com. Buy the song. It's only 69 cents. Click download at your price. Support our work. Let's see Together Again hit Billboard charts, because that would put not only Timcast Music on the charts once again, it'll put Smokey Mike and the God King up on Billboard as well. We're having a good time with this. I want to first jump to this video from Taylor Hansen to show you exactly how bad it is. He tweets, exclusive, inside makeshift migrant apprehension site in Eagle Pass. thousands of illegal migrants have been sleeping here as they wait to be apprehended and processed. Some have been here for over 24 hours. In all my years of reporting, I've never seen anything like this. Take a look, and we'll play this video as we see Taylor actually walk around and give us the on-the-ground view of just how bad things really are.
Taylor Hansen here with Tenant Media. Right now I am directly in the area where they are all waiting, processing. You have over 1,000 migrants here. It's about, I would say, 5:30 a.m. in the morning. But let me take you through a quick little walkthrough real quick.
We'll jump ahead as he's walking through. You can see...
I mean, just take a look around the sheer amount of people here. You easily have 1,000 people. Border Patrol is actually heading a few miles down and picking these migrants up down the street. Instead of making them walk, they're giving them rides into this little area while they're awaiting processing.
It's not just about that. Many of these are awaiting processing, but the reality is, according to the New York Post, no conditions. None. Joe Biden has just said, open the floodgates. Why? It's the fourth quarter. This country is being ripped apart and destroyed. Roseanne, she joked with Michael Malice. Well, I don't know that she joked, but she made a bet there wouldn't be an election. Well, Michael Malice will be joining us tonight. We'll make sure to order some Papa John's for him because he's always, he likes ordering Papa John's or whatever. But we'll have that conversation about whether he thinks there will actually be an election this time around. The argument we made was that, what does it mean for there to be no election? Does it mean that we all just don't go vote and it's canceled? Or does it mean that no one will believe an actual election happens because the true choice of the people, Donald Trump, would be removed from the ballot, which is happening? Record 12,600 migrants encountered at border in 24 hours as backlog for immigration hearings breaks 3 million. They're evil people. They're evil. The end result, or I believe that a possible end result of the coming conflict in this country. Look, guys, let me ask you a question. Honest question. Because I know that civil war is a meme, and everyone's even laughing now, bang, ha, 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 drink. Now, let's get serious for a second. There's a reason why I talk about it. There's a reason why the story was written in the first place, and I picked that story up. I ask you this legitimately. How does this country move forward when the Democrats have just shattered the borders? If you don't have a border, you have no country. That's not even a question. That is a fact of the definition. A country is defined as a jurisdiction of a nation with its borders clearly outlined. There's interesting. I talked about this a while ago. The definition of nation and country, they're different. Nation is typically referring to the body of the people, and the country is the defined borders of a nation. And the reason why nation and country is different is because you can have disputed borders of a country, and you can have elements of a nation spilling out to other areas through war and conflict. But country is the jurisdiction where the laws are enforced. And of course, you can argue the definitions are used interchangeably. How can there be a country when non-citizens are granted the right to vote already in numerous jurisdictions? It's not an exaggeration. In many urban Democrat-run cities, they have already granted non-citizens the right to vote. How does this country survive? Someone's paying for it. I believe that Joe Biden, Democratic establishment in Washington right now in the federal government, are trying to burn the country down. It's effectively like destroying the evidence. They know that their lives will get worse, so they will destroy yours and the future of your children and your family for their political goals and to protect their assets they stole. That's where we're headed. There's no explanation for why they're doing this. I mean, people try to make arguments as to, net migration changes, but the end result will be civil war and it will be the destruction of this country. That's it. I'm sorry. Make jokes you want all about civil war all day and night. That's it. Let me explain to you what's happening. First, let me give you some information here. They say 12,600 migrants in one day. The numbers have reached the highest ever recorded since the end of Title 42. In August, we saw more than 304,000 migrants attempt to gain entry. It increased in September to 341,000. October was 310,000. Border resources are stretched so thin, road and rail crossings have been closed so all available officers can be diverted to processing the arriving migrants. Yeah, hold on there a minute. Why is it then the federal government was removing the border barriers? Because they're intentionally making this happen. Now, perhaps there's an explanation. From scnr.com, new census data shows migration could cost Democrat majority states numerous congressional seats. 4 southern states accounted for 93% of the U.S. population growth last year. Population trends highlighted in data released this week by the U.S. Census Bureau show large migration shifts to southern, mostly Republican-led states, which could give the GOP an advantage in Congress. Could. It would. Now, I don't know if Scanner, I don't believe they have the image pulled up, but maybe we can, let me see if we can pull this image up. They have a great map actually showing the breakdown of where, actually, here's the charts. The 10 most populous states in 2023, California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan. The top 10 states by growth: Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Arizona, Virginia, Colorado, Utah. I think we get where this is going and why it is. What we saw in 2020 was a mass migration of American citizens to red areas, namely Florida and Texas, outside of New York. Now they're flooding this country, and many of these people are going to places like New York and Chicago. Why would that be? To inflate their population base, effectively destroying the country. You see, when Americans vote on what they want, that's the way the country is supposed to work. The Americans have their voices heard, though not very loudly, I might add. Typically, laws are put in place by the wealthiest. But if many Americans fled Democrat-run cities and went to Republican-controlled areas and inflated the number of congressional seats in these areas, it diluted Democrat voting power. Well, that's what the American people wanted. The mass migration into Florida from California, New York, or into Texas proves this point. So the Democrats decide we will flood this country with non-citizens who have no allegiance, who don't care of our culture, and we'll send them to Chicago. We'll send them to New York. We'll send them all over the country. Now, I know Greg Abbott has been sending people out of Texas, and that's why we've complained about it in the past, that all they do by sending the migrants deeper into the country is exacerbate the problem. And that's why I say civil war. Texas does not care about the rest of the United States. They prioritize Texas first. I suppose they should. But this means that when this mass migration happens into Eagle Pass, for instance, Texas says, you know what? The rest of you deal with it. And they give the Democrats exactly what they want. But what's the end result of this? When it finally hits the fan, Texas just says, you know what? Secession. In that new movie that's coming out, Civil War, they show there are northern Republican states and southern Republican states that have seceded from the Union. There's a band of states going across the middle of the Midwest called the Loyalist states. So New England and much of the Midwest find themselves aligned with the traditional United States. The Florida Alliance is the old southern states. The Western forces are the northern conservative states. California and Texas have seceded into their own republics. That actually really makes sense. Texas was asked when they were trying to join the Union, or when they were invited into the Union, they were asked, would you like to enter as 5 different states because you're so large? And Texas said, no, we'll stay Texas. And they did. Now, some of the land was lost in the long run. I think Texas used to stretch a bit further north. California wants to secede as well, but California is certainly large enough to be 3 to 5 states itself. Thus, they just become their own republics. It makes sense. Southern states are sick of the immigration crisis, will eventually assert themselves over federal law. The argument about why Texas won't actually deport these people is that they don't have the authority to deport. Texas can't send people into Mexico. Texas cannot engage in negotiations with foreign nations. Only the federal government can. Texas recently made it illegal to enter their state without proper processing or documentation, thus giving them more authority to arrest and detain people. I still don't know that they can deport. Now, if Texas does secede for some reason, which I don't see happening anytime soon, to be completely honest, then they can. And there will be negotiations between a variety of jurisdictions and bodies in this country. It seems like a real possibility, I have to be honest. The more and more I see this happening, I don't know how you get anything else. In this story from the Daily Mail, furious Chicago resident rips into Mayor Brandon Johnson for throwing open the door to thousands of migrants and letting down black communities. You voted for him! And therein lies the big problem. Not even in these cities are they happy with what's going on. This country cannot survive this way. I'm sorry, it just can't. The response from the corporate press: Trump repeats anti-immigrant tirade, denies reading Hitler. He says, I never read Mein Kampf, Trump told a crowd in Iowa. Because they're saying he used the phrase poisoning the blood, which is similar to what Hitler said in Mein Kampf, that the blood was being poisoned. Whatever. Analogies are stupid. Like, oh, two guys use analogies, therefore their ideology is the same. Get out of here. Here's what I see. If you look at history, you can see how war ultimately results in massive cultural and societal changes. Often. I mean, it's inevitable that a war would do that. So what I see happening is Donald Trump wins. Donald Trump begins to remove illegal immigrants from this country. You'll end up with a mass movement from the left because they're psychotic, zealous cultists arguing that it's a new Holocaust or genocide. Trump, of course, will have to start putting these migrants on trains and buses, and they're already being held in camps. Not made by Trump, mind you. Chicago's talking about building camps right now. So Trump will take office with all of these migrants, not all of them, but many of them in camps. He'll create a task force to start arresting illegal immigrants, people who broke the laws of this country, and he'll start deporting them. Resources will be strained. And the left will argue it is the same as the Holocaust or something akin to it. If this results in mass conflict and war in the coming years, if the left is able to win, the United States will cease to exist. That's the end goal. No constitution, no borders, no laws. It will be the start of the global citizenry. The United States is already inching towards the point where, as a non-citizen, not only do you have your fundamental rights protected, now that I agree with, but they're saying you get access to services, the public coffers, special access, and even the right to vote. What happens then? Well, anyone from anywhere can just come to the United States, move in, live wherever they want to live, and do whatever they want. It is the beginning of global governance. It's an interesting thought. The United States effectively has no borders. Anyone can just come and do whatever they want. You'll see mass slums and the destruction of communities. You will see effectively a no man's land. I mean, that's literally what it would be. People in the suburbs will build walls around their communities and have their own armed police forces. It will granularize everything, digitize. But there will be an overarching global authority. What was once the United States will now be the global authority. Other countries will maintain their borders and security, of course. In the United States, communities will start to expand and do much the same thing, but this will sever off the United States as some kind of other force that will exert itself over other countries, as it already does. You want to go to Mexico? Well, there's a border checkpoint. Mexicans want to come here? Walk right in. Live wherever they want to live. Do whatever they want. There will be no United States. There will just be the international territories of Earth. And as more and more are conquered and forced into it, that's the future I see. I don't know that's a guarantee. It's a possibility. I don't know how it would work, but it'll be gradual. It'll happen gradually, then suddenly. The gradually is now. If a war or conflict emerges and American patriots lose, there will no longer be a United States. Imagine a world map with all these countries, and where the United States is, nothing. Just warring bands, warring factions, and an overarching authority that refers to itself as the United States of America. But there's no border checkpoints, no security, just conflict, crisis, and a massive military apparatus that exists internationally. It's almost like the military-industrial complex wants to use this opportunity to decouple itself from the American people and exist as the global authority. And it could, depending on what other countries do. But your home, your lands, your values, your traditions will be destroyed in this. And the end result will be something like a cultural revolution. Already, when they're saying 15 to 16 million, between 8 and 16, depending on who you're reading. Yeah, this country has 330 million or so people in it. They're talking about adding 5% of the population just being dropped and dumped into it. I'm sorry. That is just not mathematically possible to maintain. Food, jobs, the economy, it'll collapse. Your wealth, everything around you will be destroyed. It's not just that the United States will cease to exist. It's that what your ancestors built for you, gone. The future for your children, gone. Gone. You will have no wealth. You will have nothing. And isn't that the end result? You will have nothing. You will own nothing, but you'll be happy. It's a potentiality. I don't know exactly how it will play out, but this is what seems to be a strong possibility. Much like slavery after the war, it's done and they abolish it. I have a feeling they'll try and play a similar game with immigration. They will say after this coming conflict that it was a violation of human rights to bar a human being from having access to work. And I think it's funny because, there's a lot of libertarians that believe there shouldn't be any borders. The only problem is there won't be borders, but there will be an authoritarian global military regime that will put its boot on your neck. So you're not going to get what you want, only the destruction of what could have stopped it. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all then.